I promised you one of the most famous journalists in Germany, and here he comes, Kai Diekmann, the founder of the social media company Storymachine. Until 2017, he was publishing director of the Bild-Zeitung. Since November 2017, he is also chairman of the Freundeskreis of Yad Vashem in Germany. And the title of his presentation is The Power of Social Media. But looking at you, Kai, I'm getting the impression you want to show us the power of a beard.
Hi, Susanne. Great to see you tonight, and best greetings from Berlin. I am actually talking to you from the center of Berlin, Berlin Mitte, and I'm sitting here in an old theater that is actually the office of Storymachine, the company I founded 3 years ago. 3 years ago, this company has not been existing, and this is my new life. And this theater has been an old varieté theater, and today 93 people are actually working here. This is my second life. In my first life, as Susanne just mentioned, I've been editor-in-chief of Bild for nearly 16 years, and I've been with the Axel Springer company for 31 years. Being an editor of Bild was just great because, it was nearly a license to print money, to publish a newspaper for decades. But then came the internet, and that model was over. Overnight, actually, first our business model as a media publisher was destroyed, or at least attacked. Selling news on paper, selling reach, this was much better done by the iPhone, by smartphones, and selling reach was much better done by Google or Facebook. This was only the part where our business model was attacked. But then came social media, and social media actually took the soul out of journalism. What was my job as editor-in-chief for so many years? Actually, I was the gatekeeper. I was the one who decided which persons with which message would get access to a mass audience. I was the agenda setter. In the past, you need either a TV station or a printing factory to actually reach out to a mass audience. And this was over with social media. Social media suddenly supplied the tools to actually reach out to a mass audience without having to use the media, the traditional media. TV, which was TV in former times, was done by YouTube or Facebook Live. Printing factory is Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. And this was the moment where actually everything changed in the way we delivered content and in the way we consumed content. If I'm asked today, what is actually the business model of Storymachine, I say, in a nutshell, it's Donald Trump. Because there's nobody in the world who is so successful with using social media as Donald Trump. And I'm not endorsing at all what he is doing on Twitter, but we actually have to accept that he is a genius in communicating with Twitter and through Twitter. We actually can say, without Twitter, Donald Trump never ever had the chance to become president, because traditional media would have never gave him the space to present himself, to express himself, but he didn't care at all about the New York Times on the left and CNN on the right, and communicated directly with his audience. And at the end, we have to recognize that nowadays he reaches on Twitter over 80 million followers, whereas the biggest newspaper in the US, the New York Times, just reaches a little more than 40 million. And the same is with CNN, who actually just reaches the same, just a little bit over 40 million users. And this shows how powerful you can be if you use social media in the right way. It's, by the way, quite interesting that it's have been always American presidents who recognized new communication tools first. It was Franklin D. Roosevelt with the radio. It was John F. Kennedy with TV. And it was finally Donald Trump with Twitter. But actually, it's not only the dark side who recognizes the power of social media, but you can see that on the brighter side as well. Take a show star, a pop star like Taylor Swift. Overall, social media, she has got around 300 to 400 million followers. And whenever it comes to an audience award, given to somebody by the audience, she is going to win this award because she can activate her audience. I think it was the MTV Music Awards the other day when she was supposed not to sing certain things, or by her music company. She organized a protest on social media, and so many followers signed that protest that actually at the end, her company had to give in and she could sing that songs. This is not just a feeling that social media became so powerful, but you can see it in the numbers. And I'm talking now about German numbers. And you have to see Germany is always a little behind any US trend. 10 years ago, the total circulation of all German newspapers was around 28 million sold copies every day. Nowadays, it's only 14 million copies sold every day, and it's getting fewer and fewer, and the circulation is going down even faster every day. And still, we are a heaven for newspapers, but this is over. At the same time, over 40 million Germans are actually on social media. Over 30 million on Facebook, over 20 million daily active on Facebook. And this shows at least what kind of trend is going on there. The numbers of readers of newspapers and magazines going down dramatically, whereas every single social media is still growing. Even Facebook is still growing. But this is not only true for traditional newspaper or magazine media. It is always true for TV. I'm sorry to say so, Susanne, but the most watched TV station in Germany is still the ZDF. Do you have got any idea how big the share of the people under the age of 20 is watching ZDF? It's 0.8%, 0.8. But only if you count live football in. If you take live football out, you can't even measure the share of people under the age of 20 watching ZDF, the most watched TV station in Germany. The share of people under 30 is just 3%. And everybody who's got kids knows that this is true. They don't watch linear TV at all. If you've got Apple TV or if you've got Netflix at home, you know they are watching it, but they don't watch anything else. We had an incident the other day when our Wi-Fi was down, and I was called by our 14-year-old son. And he said, Dad, I'm a total victim. The Wi-Fi is dead, and now I have to watch TV. And they even force me to watch normal TV, and they force me to watch what they want me to see. So for somebody from that generation, it is totally crazy to watch linear TV. So we have to recognize that there are already two generations in Germany right now. If we are talking about the millennials, and the millennials, they are not teenagers anymore. They turned 40 years this year. We are talking about two generations right now that can't be reached by linear TV in any way, that can't be reached by traditional media, not on paper at all, and they don't even go and look up news at a special news site because they grow up on social media. And the way they consume news is totally different. They don't search for news. They don't pull the content, but they learn that the content is taken to them, that the content is pushed to them. That's the secret of the feed. That's the secret of the algorithm. The algorithm shows them what content they like. And so their conclusion is that everything what they see in their feed is relevant to them, and what they don't see in the feed is therefore irrelevant to them. So that means at the end that whenever you are an organization or a company, if you offer a service, if you offer a product, or if you want to be attractive as a prospective employer, and you don't show up in these feeds on social media, you're in fact not existent in the live reality of these two generations. And this is extremely important to understand what big impact this means. For example, if you're talking to German companies, what is their biggest fear for the future? It is not climate, it is not China, but it's the fear not to find the right young people that are going to work, right young skilled people that are going to work for them. When I did my A levels, like nearly 35 years ago, and the Deutsche Bank was offering a place to educate people, there were big lines around the block because I was part of the baby boomers, and everybody wanted to have that job at the Deutsche Bank. That's not true anymore. There's nobody, and everybody is competing with any other company and organization for that young people. So it is extremely important for any organization or any company that wants any recognition to be on social media, because otherwise you are simply not existent. There's one other point that is really important to understand. Even as a company, as an organization, you don't care about social media and don't want to have anything to do with it, you have to understand that social media enables a single person to destroy or at least seriously damage any organization or any company. In the former times, in the times when my media was still extremely successful and when there was no social media around, it was very unlikely that, for example, a unsatisfied customer of the Lufthansa would go all up through the stages of the different media companies and end up in the office of the editor of Bild and finally become headline. In today's world, we learned that one unsatisfied customer of United Airlines and one posted video that went viral on social media actually damaged that company seriously. Their market share, their market value went down 1 billion, and the CEO was finally fired. In Germany, the CDU had to learn this dramatically last year with the European election, when there was a young YouTuber called Rezo who made a video called "Destroy the CDU," destroy the Christian Democratic Union. That video was around, and the Christian Democratic Union didn't recognize it on YouTube and other social media channels. Then they start discussing how to react. Then they produced another video. They didn't show it to the public, but they decided not to deliver it. At the end, they gave a 50 pages of PDF to the public to answer to that video. In the end, that video is today, the video of Rezo, that young YouTuber, is today with 17 million views, the most watched YouTube video in Germany ever. And the CDU probably lost up to 3% because of that video in the election. And this shows how powerful social media can be. And it's good if a company learns to react, and so did the CDU. They learned how to react. And the other day, a couple of weeks ago, when they had their party meeting in Leipzig, just one day prior to that party meeting, Greenpeace activists went undercover to the headquarters of the CDU here in Berlin and stole the C from their ceiling, the C that stands for Christian, and stole it and went to social media and said, I'm the C and I don't feel any comfortable with you anymore, rest of CDU. And they wanted to go with that C everywhere where it would hurt the CDU. But just 15 minutes after Greenpeace has been on social media, the CDU reacted and they came with a Twitter name called I'm the Do, the rest of CDU without C. And I don't mind if you go to the others, probably you can help them as well. But I tell you one thing, tonight you have to be at home again. And they had all the laughs on their side. And that night, a very famous satirical guy in Germany, Jan Böhmermann, who is extremely successful on social media, made a tweet like, CDU wins over Greenpeace, what a time to be alive. And this shows how important it is to give professional reaction on social media, to be present on social media if you want to be successful in the real life. One thing that is really important is to understand that communicating on social media is nothing that you can do like an hobby, or that is something that is not professional. It is as professional as corporate communications, it is as professional as marketing, and it is very different from both ways, like marketing or corporate communications. And that's the reason why, for example, our company grew so fast, because the demand for professional communication is more and more recognized. And this is what we're actually doing. We act like social media ghostwriters. We act like social media ghost posters. We don't talk about our clients because we are, as I said, ghostwriters. And I hope I could give you some ideas about our view in social media and why it is so important to understand the revolution in the communication. Thank you very much, and I'm giving it back to Susanne Glass.
Thank you very much, Kai. It was very interesting, like always, and you gave us a lot of things to thought about. To think about, but you mentioned, for example, Böhmermann, and what I think is really interesting that I read that he recently published, or he's publishing a book with his tweets from the last years, so somehow he wants to see them printed. This is also an interesting development, but for sure you're right, social media is very important, it has a huge power, and my co-founder and social media expert Jenny will host the last panel discussion tonight about social media as the fifth power. Jenny, what's your what is your opinion about what Kai said?
Well, first of all, I agree with him. He talked about his son that came up to him and said, now I'm forced, because there's no internet, I'm forced to watch TV. And I totally feel his son, even I, because of course nowadays I think what is amazing about social media or the internet, even the traditional media you can still watch on now on YouTube, or like you can watch it online anytime you want. And I think what is very important impact that social media has is, for example, now we see nowadays the demonstrations in Belarus where we see things that would be hidden from us otherwise. So there are activists, political activists that are posting on social media, and we can see what actually is going on, because in some countries the journalists can't even do their work. So it is giving some kind of like addition to it, and I think this is the beauty also of it.
That's true, but on the other hand side, it has to be controlled, this power.
That's true.
And this is why we do the whole summit, and that's why I'm very thankful about what Kai said. But Kai, I also have to mention that during the Corona crisis, the Tagesschau had a lot of viewers. So it's also seeable that during times of crisis, the people still, I say still, believe also in TV and radio, and also younger people are getting older. Anyway,
You're right.
it's just
You're
a joke.
right.
It's
You're
just
right.
a joke, and that's why we are hosting this online summit. And I strongly believe that we have to see what's going on social media, and we have to try also to control a little bit this powerful media. But
I agree with you. I agree with you. So we've seen, on one hand, we heard what Kai Diekmann said about the power of social media, but we also saw yesterday the danger of social media. Yesterday there were many discussions and panels about the danger when it comes to anti-Semitism and hate speech.